9 notes, A subsection 1, it says fines for non-registration shall be waived, but there are no fines any longer, so that should also be removed. Under subsection 2 of that, it says the system owner shall be notified by certified mail after the second false alarm, and written documentation of corrective action taken is to be submitted to the administrator's office. But there's nothing to compel them to do that, so I don't know if we need to think about that.
Where?
Who's the
Under
written
number 2.
documentation done by?
The alarm user contractor.
Okay.
Yeah. And then note 3, it says the system, and this has always been written in here, but now that we're opening this up, we might as well discuss it. System owner shall be notified by certified mail. So now we're going to have 2 administrators instead of 1 central location. So do each of them have some sort of budget? If so, where's that money coming from? And then it says amount of fine, findings of fire department upon investigation. Should that say findings of police and fire department, since there's now a police department?
We actually did talk about this one, and again, the fire department, the burglar alarm, as I'll explain in a minute with Lieutenant Cavello's statistics, the burglar alarms are more easy to identify as false. The fire alarms, not so much, because there's often an investigation that comes with it. I mean, you can get a fire alarm, and that's why the reason for 2 separate administrators is you can get a fire alarm from burning food, your house didn't burn down. Or you could get a fire from faulty electric wire. There's usually a follow-up investigation with the fire department, whereas if the house is getting burglarized, they can figure that out much more quickly without drawn-out investigation. So that was deliberately left as it was.
So is there just 1 set of records? Or
2.
so then say the police department responds to a false alarm one day, and then another day in that same building, it's the fire department. How are they communicating the false alarms between each other?
For them to decide. I mean, as I said, it's 2, you're in 2 different worlds with fire alarms and burglar alarms. It really doesn't matter that they happen at the same location.
But in this ordinance, you're not.
Sure you are.
Whether the false alarm is a burglar alarm or fire, it's based on the number of false alarms.
Yep. And again, it's under that administrator.
It doesn't say that though.
So if you have 1
Yeah, I
false
think it's
alarm for
pretty
fire
clear
and 1 for
elsewhere.
police, then you're at 0 because it hasn't happened yet?
If you're at 1 for the fire and 1 for the police, you're at 1 and 1. You're not at 2 total.
Okay.
Where does it say that, Matt?
I think it's pretty clear subject to interpretation because you're under 2 different administrators.
Well, I'm just a simpleton, not an attorney and I'm the simpleton who's going to be getting the fine. So
Do you have false alarm systems, man?
I don't have an alarm system for this very reason.
Oh, I have a question, Matt.
Yeah.
So in, we're still on 2A29, number 2, and it talks about that if you have gone more than 30 days not paid in full, you're placed on a suspension of response status to the extent permitted by law. Does that extent permitted by law cover the town liability if the suspension of...
Absolutely. That's why that's the reason for that language.
So if the building burns down or if somebody breaks in and steals the Hope Diamond, we're not liable?
Correct. Again, to the extent permitted by law, and as I said, the legislature has been tackling this issue in recent years, and they're not done with it yet. So, again, I mean, if they say, if the court says, or if the legislature says, you can't have a suspension of response status for this reason, you don't void the whole ordinance because that part of it becomes void.
Done.
What is it? Is that something that's going to be decided on fairly quickly? Because I'd hate to have...
I don't know. I mean, they've been juggling it back and forth for years. It gets out of committee, and then one house doesn't take it up. I mean,
I'd hate to see the fire department not respond because someone wants suspension. I can't imagine them, actually, I can't imagine them not responding if there's a fire alarm going off. I mean, I can see if it's inconsistent. If someone hasn't paid and it's 45 days, and it's going to be interesting.
I mean, most of the ones that have the repeated false alarm status
It can't be that way.
call and say, look, if this is so-and-so at this business that's always going off, everything's fine, don't send them out, you know?
But the thing is, false alarms, sometimes it's not a false alarm. Do you know what I mean? So if they haven't paid, like you just said, I'm sure, I don't know what that law is. Can you tell me where I'd find that?
I can't. I mean, I know that the suspension of response status was something that was struggled with, and as you'll see, I mean, it's more, and again, there's a lot of administrative discretion in here because Statistics from the police department, which are the primary reason for the change in the ordinance. There were, in 2016, there were 1,381 police responses to the alarms. There were 2 actual burglaries. In 2017, there were 1,513 police response to burglar alarms. There were 4 actual burglaries.
Matt?
In 2018 so far, there's been 779 police responses
going
to
down.
false alarms and 2 actual burglaries.
Do you know how many of those were second and third and fourth?
No, that I don't know.
Repeats?
But it's constantly been I mean, Lieutenant Cabello was the one who proposed getting an alarm ordinance in the first place. And we had a fire ordinance on the books for years, and the Supreme Court has since opined that if you're going to fine for one, you can't not be able to fine for the other. So the constantly, this is I'm sure Chief is here, speak for Lieutenant Cabello tonight. This has been a constant drain on the resources of the police department, and it diverts their attention away from things that need attention.
So then, Matt, just 2 more quick questions. Number 1 is, so now if I fit out a new office space, I'm now going to have to register my alarm with the fire marshal's office, the fire alarm with the fire department administrator, the burglar alarm with the police department administrator.
Yeah.
Okay. And so based on the fact that there's over 1,000 false alarms, these administrators are going to be volunteers
You know,
Not now.
doing the
that's-
paperwork.
that's
Not now,
some-
they're not. Now
That's
they're
that's
still-
something that.
I just want to think this through as
Right.
we're,
If the-
we're
if the
approving this.
administrators-
I want to make sure we.
If the administrators are going to be stipended, that's something that the council has to deal with and the Board of Finance has to deal with through the budget process.
Because right now we're saying all the fees aren't, there's no consideration for those fees to
I
first.
mean, look at it
Pay a
this,
stipend.
look at it this way. Right now, the police department and the fire departments are responding to the alarms, false or not. So they're not going to be adding work. I mean, it's just a question of the documentation of it and.
Well, now there's an appeal.
Well,
I just
there
wanna make
is
sure
no-
the-
there already is an alarm appeals board,
I just want
Right.
to, yeah, but how often does it meet?
as needed.
When was the last time we met?
I don't know.
Yeah.
My fear is just something not happening because of a fine. Like, either the fine's not getting paid, so a first responder's not going, or the opposite is an alarm goes off and I as a business owner don't want to get that fine, so I'm telling my alarm company that do not respond to police until I go and check the place out, which is not very safe. So that's just my fear. I know at, personally, our health club, there's a lot of stuff in there, papers can fall and the alarm has gone off. And I'm looking at the price tag right now, what's gonna cost me, just one more thing, that it just,
But again, I mean, I'm not advocating for this one way or the other. I mean, it's just, if you
Yeah.
want to change it, we'll keep the public hearing open.
Matt, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but back to that, the 30 days and the suspension and response. So the users placed on that suspension and response list, are they notified at the time of the second or third or however many times they've been late in their payments? Let's say on the 31st day, the 45th day, are they notified?
I believe there is something on the form now from the fire department that indicates that what offense it was or anything like that.
But it's relatively quick so that it's...
Yeah, it's often.
So
not
they
even-
know they should get
It
down
often
and
doesn't
pay.
need to be certified because it's handed to the property owner on the spot.
Gotcha.
Again,
That's a good
that's something the burglar alarm administrator will have to deal with, whoever that is.
And who's been doing this?
Right now, we only have a fire ordinance,
So
so
they-
whoever responds to the fire, the supervising, I believe it's the scene commander or whatever it's called, is the one who writes up what's going on and whether or not it was a false alarm.
So adding in some police department oversight on this is going to make it
Right.
better?
And again, the other thing too, that Chief Furlow had mentioned as we were doing this is the current forms that the fire departments are using in Milford are out of date. They have to be updated anyway, and this is going to also allow them to update them.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Okay, second ordinance, which there's no substantial changes, concerns the addition of the feet set forth for the fire marshal's inspection fees. Does anybody from the council have any questions concerning the inspection fees? Anyone from the public?
Just for the record, for those who were not here the last time, that is merely adding a fee for when our, one of our town employees has to basically take half a day to go up to Litchfield to get a subpoena, to get into a place that they've tried to inspect on multiple occasions and work with the prosecutor. So it adds a fine for that at the maximum level of where our other fines are, fees are right now.
Would anyone from the council like to keep this public hearing open? Do they have any additional questions? Would anyone entertain making the motion to close the public hearing?
I'd like to keep it open. I'd like the answers to some of these questions.
Walter?
I'd like to keep this open too. I hear Paul, and it's like a lament. It's like having a secretary to the secretary to the secretary to the secretary. There's something wrong here. We need to keep this open,
Okay,
Mr.
we'll keep it open.
What do you want worked on this time? I mean,
It needs work.
where?
Well, everything that Paul brought up, and I think I'd say, right, Paul?
Yeah.
And I would like to have something, I know you tell me that the legislature has been messing around with defining this lack of response or suspension of response, but there must be something that you could point me to, point all of us
I
to.
can point the existing statutes because there's no laws in effect right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I just, for the lack of looking, I don't want to find out the town's liable for something at some time. So, that's what I'd like to.
Any other?
Do you want to close it with respect to the inspection fees so that we can get going on that?
The only change in the inspection fees is the $200, Matt.
Yes.
Do we have to have a marshal serve them as part of that, or?
It's all part of the subpoena process. I mean, it's working, basically they're working with the assistant state's attorney who deals with the, with this area of law.
So we pay the marshal fee, or
Of course.
how much is that?
It varies. It depends on how many times they have to attempt service. If you're dealing with a marshal that happens to be located here in Milford or in the next town over, it's probably $68 at the cheapest. It could be somewhere, it could be a three-digit number.
So then
Right.
just going based on our hourly rate with benefits of our employees, so our employees' time invested then would only be like 2 hours, you know, 50
No,
bucks
it
an
could
hour?
take half a day, and if there's a lot on the docket there, it can take them a full day up to Torrington.
So why is the fee so low then if it doesn't cover our costs?
Because it matches what the maximum fee is on the table right now. This is also an area where New Milford is a pioneer. No other towns seem to have had this, even though this has been a discussion among fire marshals for some time. We're being a case of first impression with this ordinance, and nobody was comfortable with going higher than what our highest fee was on the table already.
So so to get to this point though, I mean, you're really on the naughty list, right? I mean, this isn't like borderline.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Oman explained the last time, it happens anywhere from half a dozen to 20 times a year in the worst case scenario. I believe there was 8 so far this year.
I just like to see the fee higher.
I think everybody would and pose, but if we're challenged on it, since we're an ordinance of first impression here, we would have to probably raise the other higher fee in the table, which is also $200 in
Which
order
fee
for
is
it to
that?
pass muster. There's another
1-2?
Yes.
But that's an inspection of the building, or?
Well, there's only 2 of them for 200. One's for over 30,000 square feet, and one's for that 1-2 institutional and healthcare.
I mean, you're free to make it whatever you want. I mean, the proposal is for it to match the highest fee in the table. Since we're an ordinance of first impression in this regard, I don't think it would be prudent to make it the highest fee in the tables.
Can we find out if this requires more staff time or less time than the other $200 ones?
I think Mr. Oman answered that the last time. I think it was
What was
posed,
the answer?
but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
I didn't present it.
Do we have a motion to close the second public hearing, which is the inspection fees, or do you want to keep it open? Okay.
We can close that one.
We have one that wants to keep it open, one's
No.
saying close
Keep
it.
it open?
Yeah, let me just say my piece. The town shouldn't have to take it on the chin if the person has to go to court, that should be, let's say, $200 plus the court fees, plus the marshal fees. And I understand that we're pioneers or whatever, but it doesn't make any sense to me. If we have the same repeat people, you know, it's time to hold their feet to the fire a little bit.
Yeah, but didn't you say by statute we really can't go any higher?
Well, I didn't recommend it for the reasons that, again, we're a pioneer in this regard. If we're going to put something that's a case of first impression in the ordinance, we should be in line with where we are. If we're going to do something that's over and above where we are on any of the other fees, we might have a difficult time enforcing that if we had to get into Superior Court.
But Matt, if we never, ever do it, it'll never go up. And we're losing now, so, you know, if somebody has to take a half a day or more of their time, I realize that it's almost impossible to recoup that. But still, you know, like you say, why take it on the chin? Somebody's going to have to do it. If we're a pioneer, isn't that the point of being a pioneer?
Again, you want to be a pioneer and you want what you're doing to survive if you wind up in Superior Court over it. And I think you have a better chance with this. Again, I mean, you folks can do what you want. I mean, but I mean.
So if we were to decide to go to 250
or 300 or whatever,
we'd end up in Superior Court having to defend it?
No, I mean, I think you'd have a difficult time defending it. I don't know that it's not defendable.
I don't know that I would. It just, I think our hourly rate of whomever is taking care of this, as Michael said, it's the offender that needs to go and make a defense. We're just going along because they're in our town, but that's an expensive proposition if it happens multiple times, not for the same person, but if it did or for any amount of time. We don't have any excess to be handing out. So why not try to recoup it from the person who made the offense?
More than welcome to do that.
I mean, that's not for me to decide, that's why we're all here together, but I just don't see why we should shy away from something that's been in effect for how many years?
So is it the council's
I'm
thoughts?
fine with leaving it open.
Is the council's thoughts that you add in the costs of labor to the actual fee itself?
Yeah.
So we become neutral?
Yep.
Okay. So we want to work on that, we'll get that for the next meeting?
Yeah.
And we'll add that into what the penalty should be.
Not to be a profit center, you're saying, just to
Exactly.
cover, if the hourly rate is X, we'd like to get X back for the number of hours.
And as a deterrence.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to keep these open.
Yes, right? Everybody, you're all keeping them open? Yeah, Doug?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to regular council meeting. We can stand for the pledge in a moment of silence. Mrs. Francis, can you lead us in the pledge?
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you.
They are cold. Cold hands, warm heart.
What I do. No.
Oh, I've got some here.
As we continue today, I think we have the best town in the whole country. And part of that's our community and our people that have given to the town, both in the past and in now. And actually, I'm here tonight for the town to give a proclamation to somebody that's done both. And that's to Miss Lewis. Come on up here, Miss Lewis. Dr. Joanne M. Lillis was born on July 9th. I can keep the date out. She's the daughter of the late M. Joseph Lillis and Ann Hyland Lillis. She has two brothers, Joseph and Lawrence. And whereas Joanne is a 1957 graduate of Milford High School and received a bachelor's degree from St. Joseph's College, a master's degree from the University of Hartford, and a 6th-year professional certificate from Fairfield University and her Doctor of Education from Nova University. And whereas Joanne was an educator for 37 years and taught in the Hartford Public School System from 1961 to 1965. But most of her professional life, she was a teacher and administrator of the Milford Public School Systems from 1965 to her retirement in 1998. And whereas Joanne has always been a strong advocate and supporter of the arts and the rich history of the town of New Milford. She has served on many town boards and commissions and is currently the president of the New Milford Public Library Board of Trustees. She is a lifelong member and former president of the Milford Historical Society, a member of the Commission on the Arts, a member and a secretary for the board of the Burial Center for the Arts, a board member of the New Milford Trust for Historical Preservation, a member of the John Pettibone Scholarship Committee, and a member of the Marysville Hotel Restoration Organization. Joanne is a charter member of the Delta Kappa Gamma Honorary Society of Women Educators. Now, therefore, I, Pete Bass, do hereby express the gratitude of the town of New Milford and thank Dr. Joanne M. Lillis for all she has done and still does for the town. It is very much recognized and appreciated.
One speaker, Mr. Mayor. Greg Mullen, please.
Greg Mullen, 39 Meadowood Drive, New Milford. I'm here to speak about your agenda item number 10, Community Center Committee. I'm a member of the Community Center Committee, but I'm not speaking on behalf or on the committee's behalf tonight. These are my own personal observations and opinions. Mayor Bass, from the beginning, has said that he wanted to do what was right by the townspeople, not what he wants, but what the majority of the people want. Not what he wants, but what the majority of the people want. I hope you can set aside your own personal biases as well. I believe he promised to reinstate the Community Center Committee to make sure that the townspeople had a say in the process. He fulfilled that promise. In fact, he made sure that many of the strongest supporters of the former administration's concept of what they wanted were represented and gave them the majority of the committee. My belief is that was with the hope that we as a committee could find a way to work together and to do the best we could to help inform the townspeople and provide information to the town council that would help guide you. I personally hope that you will allow our committee, with all of our differences, to fulfill our mayor's wish of reaching out to the townspeople and trust in the process. As stakeholders, the town council members that wish to help guide the survey's objectives will have that option. Since there has been much concern about our committee's ability to be unbiased and work well together, I also personally recommend that the town council have the final say over the final survey questions. We all have biases and personal opinions. What is important, in my opinion, is that finding out, to the best of our ability, what the townspeople want and what they're willing to spend their money on. This survey is part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. The end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Walter. Next, Mayor's remarks. First, I'd like to wish everybody, both here in the audience and watching on our live feed, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. So we're moving into the holiday season. I would also like to thank our DPW, our Park and Rec, our first responders who worked tirelessly through our surprise storm. For those that were home, and fortunate to be home, as you can see, we had 1 to 2 inches an hour. Unfortunately, we had the state DOT that had issues with their vehicles, which caused some problems within our district, as well as other towns. I thank the DPW for doing the hard work they did, even helping the state in some respects, getting some of our citizenry off of the state roads. So I want to thank each and every one of those departments for all their work. And we're just in the beginning of the winter season, so thank you. I'd also like to thank the New Milford Chamber, the Park and Rec, the United Methodist Men, and the Garden Club for the Christmas lights that we see on the green. Beautiful, wonderful, great start to our holiday season. I'd like to thank Santa Claus for coming to our event. It was widely received by a lot of our citizenry, so thank you very much. And thank you for the town for allowing us to do so. I'd like to give you a couple updates on our roads. Mill Street Bridge is open. You can drive through there now. There's still some work to do on the rails and whatnot, but at least you can get through the bridge, and we're thankful for that. Long Mountain Road Phase 3, weather permitting, hopefully tomorrow. We'll be able to put the base course down on that. If weather is provided, there may be an opportunity to put the finish on the whole part of the road, but at least we're going to get the base done. Also for Squire Hill, for those that have live up there and those that have driven there, we know how that road is definitely a safety hazard. That road was one that we were trying to get done this year, unfortunately, with the weather. It's been 40 plus days of rain during the cycle of construction. We all know the safety that needs to be done up there, so what we are going to be doing is putting a overlay over the damaged, very damaged parts of the road for safety. We're going to be doing that on Wednesday, weather permitting, and that should allow for the safety of our residents during the winter. When the road gets reconstructed in the spring, we're going to use that when we reclaim the road, put it back into the base where it will still be used. But that way we can provide our residents a safe mode of travel on that road. Next, I'd also like to let you know that we're working on the completion of the punch list items for Roadside Court, Bluebonnet, Great Brook, and Stephanie. These are all roads that we've been working on towards the end. We're working on the punch lists to get those completed. Sega Road is to be paved on Tuesday or Wednesday, weather permitting. So we're keeping our fingers crossed for that. We're also working on, with the Roads Committee and with our DPW team, we're working on our roads program for 2019. One of the things that we did learn is starting late in the cycle causes delays. So we want to be fully prepared and ready for the beginning of our construction season, which allows for better bids and allows us to do the work in a more timely fashion. We took some of the learning curves that we learned in this year's road program and are implementing it in this one to make it a better product. I'll be updating the town council at our December town council meeting as well. We also had public meetings on Aspetuck and Triniski for the bridges, as we're looking at those bridges to be doing. We are going to be doing Mud Pond Road bridge as well. So we're listening to the public and their input on how they want the bridges, what we're looking to do, especially in some of the rural areas, and we'll be updating the council on that as too. I appreciate all the members of the community that came out and spoke their opinions on these two bridges. We're taking those into consideration and moving forward. I'd also like to let the council know about the East Street School for the Connecticut Preservation Historic Trust. We put in an application for the $20,000 planning grant. We did receive that. So that's wonderful news. I'd like to thank our grant writer, Tammy Reardon, for obtaining that. And that's going to allow us to talk to the public in a very third-party professional manner about what we're going to do with this town asset, how we're going to do it and have its best use that we can bring back to the council, the Board of Finance, and the public itself. Also, I'd like to address the public that we're already beginning the process of the budget for next year. So our finance director had talked to our department heads today and talked to them about getting their numbers ready because we want to begin to build our budget, and we'll be updating the council, the Board of Finance as well. One of the things that they talked about at the charter revision, and it wasn't established within the charter, but I firmly believe in it, is that we need to keep our public apprised. So what I'm going to be asking is for a joint meeting of the Town Council, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Ed, where we're going to update our public in December about where we are as far as a budget, what are kind of the highlights and what we're going to look at. I'll be filling you guys in when we have that meeting scheduled. Also working with our Board of Ed partners, we're working on our oil tanks that are being replaced. One at Hill and Plain, one at Sarah Noble, one at the Lillis Building, one here at Town Hall, and the PD. As we've talked about before, by working together, we were able to see a cost reduction in the costs to these. So we're taking that and also looking at other capitals that we're gonna need. Mainly, as I've talked about before, roofs. So we've talked to the Board of Ed and we're still in negotiations with them about the high school roof that needs to be done on a permanent basis. Right now it was done on a temporary basis. Sarah Noble School, Hill and Plain, Northville, and the roof here at Town Hall. I'll be updating the council when we have a more definitive answer as to where we're going and how we're going to be doing that. Also with the Town Hall, we are applying for a grant by the Connecticut Historic Preservation Trust because of obviously the age of the building. For those that came through the front door, you can see our facilities committee our team did a wonderful job in scraping and painting the front of Town Hall and actually putting the name back to where it should rightly be, which is the Roger Sherman Town of New Milford Town Hall. So that's rightly put in place, and I thank them for that. Also, I'd like to apprise the public and the council as well. We continue to work on one of our major cost drivers, which is our health insurance. We're working with our Board of Education partners to do a combined health insurance migrating to the state insurance plan, which would save the town a significant amount of money. I was at the Board of Ed meeting at their last meeting last Tuesday. I've been in talks with the chairman of the Board of Finance. We are going to be holding a joint meeting between all three boards about migrating over to this program, which in some instances would be a better health insurance for our employees and also a cost savings for the town and the taxpayers as well. Mr. Grimes is having another meeting as far as the charter, and that's at December 4th at 7 p.m. at 25 East Street, am I correct? 25 Church Street. So if you would like to know more about the charter that just passed, you can go to Mr. Grimes's educational meeting that he's having. Also, I'd like to thank all of our department heads and all of our employees for all the hard work they do every day. We're continuing to look at different ways of how we do business and how we can make it better for our taxpayer. We're going to continue to strive to do that, and I can only thank the employees for all of their hard work. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Item 5 on our agenda, the consent agenda. Move to approve all items 5A and B on the consent agenda.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 6, appointments and reappointments. Move to accept appointments and reappointments per the attached list, which you all have. I can read this?
Second. No.
Thank you.
No. Katie, we got it.
I got it.
Second. Ooh, thank you.
Peter.
And just for edification real quick, as you've noticed, the ending dates, they are coinciding with the new charter change of 1/31/2020. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, update from the Director of Finance.
And before Greg goes into his thought process, I wanted to address the council on a couple of items. One, these sheets that were handed out in your packet. These are normally handed out prior to the Wednesday before. They were not put in the packet. And the reason being is we had a new upgrade on our Munis reporting. We went from, I don't know, what's it called now?
10.5 to 11.3, different versions.
And 11.3, if you were to take a look at these reports comparative to the month prior, you will see some differentiations and some consolidations. So rather than have this out into the public itself, where it could be a miscommunication, I would rather Greg talk about how these are now done differently and revisit this at the next meeting once the council has a chance to review these numbers. Also, what I'm going to be asking is that we send these budgetary items out the first Monday or the last Monday of the month. We can only do it the first Monday of the month?
No, we don't get our statements in enough. The tax numbers won't be there. Typically we get the bank statements 7th, 8th of the following month for the previous month.
Because what I'd like to be able to do is be able to have a date where the council could definitely have a feeling they know they're getting these. And then what we could do is then, if it's during the beginning of the month, or even up to the 15th, we would make this the second meeting of the month where we talk about this.
That's preferable.
That would be perfect. So that way the council has plenty of time to review these numbers rather than giving it to them at the end.
I have just a comment there.
Yes, ma'am.
And I understand what you're saying about statements and things. However, if our meeting were to fall on, let's say, the 20th, we really need to have them not on the 16th when there's a weekend before we meet. The point being that we'd like to have weekdays time to look this over. So I think I don't know if we can make a hard and fast date of that, but I guess what I'm saying is not off the hook if we don't have enough time.
I could send them out as soon as I have all the information and I'm ready. It could even be a week before the meeting.
Well, that's what ideally
or
we'd like to have. You know, we all do have jobs, and so having a week before to look things over would really make it easier on everybody, you know that. So just saying that if you find that it happens to jam up, you know, we'll just have to maybe push it back, I don't know. Because without having sufficient time to see everything and think about it, what's the point?
I know, I was out last week as well.
No, I understand, I'd rather see it in a better format, but this way, I'm glad you waited. But you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, sure, yeah, I don't have any problem.
I know it's not
I can
always
get
in-
this to you, you know, as
I
soon
know it's not
as
always
the
in your
information's
ability,
complete.
but, okay, great.
Walter?
Don't put them under a jar because it's fluid, it floats. When it
No, we'll
comes-
just have to say we
Yeah,
need
you
more
know,
time, that's all.
Yeah, he needs the flexibility to do that, so.
Yeah, I'll accommodate the council as best as I can.
Thank
I
you.
don't have a problem with that.
Well,
Yeah, so is this the right stuff? Because this is dated November 9th.
That's when the report was run.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's October, and it's information as of the end of October.
But why couldn't we have it on the 9th?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Today's the 26th, whatever it is.
I'll send it as early as it's available. How's that?
so we could do that, that'd be great, and then we'll
I
always
don't have a
make,
problem doing that.
then we'll always make sure moving forward that we will be doing the finance update the second meeting of the month. So that should
Fine.
give
Yeah.
everybody plenty of time to look at the numbers.
Yeah, I've not
Thanks.
a problem with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
The auditors arrived on Tuesday, November 6th. Preliminary feedback is good. Everything is in order, and the auditors feel that we're on schedule to meet our December 31st filing schedule with the state. As the mayor said, budget season is approaching, and there'll be a couple of changes that you will see. Namely, the probate court will be keeping their own financial records going forward. I already discussed this with the judge, and we're both in agreement. The only two line items they will have starting in the FY20 budget will be the town's appropriation to the probate court for cost share on the expenditure side and the rental income from probate on the revenue side of the budget. So I will be creating 2 new line items to accommodate that. So it'll just be one appropriation. They're gonna run their own books. They're in a different location. And there's been confusion and misunderstandings in the past between our office and the probate court. So this is a good solution for all. Also, as a result of the elimination of the ordinance that established the Waste Management Royalty Fund, all revenues associated with those operations will now be recorded in the general fund starting in fiscal year 20. So this way, the expenditures and the revenues are both in the same fund as they should be. Any questions? Okay. October expenditures are at 38.6% of budget. On a straight line basis, the expenditures would typically be at 33.3% of budget. This is due in part to the fact that our pension contribution and some of our long-term debt is front-loaded in the budget and is not paid on a straight line basis. Additionally, there are encumbrances of approximately $1.5 million included in that number as well. Legal other is running above budget, and this will be discussed in executive session this evening. October revenues are at 49% of budget. Tax collections are robust and currently are at 55% of budget. We received our first installment of the ECS funding from the state, which was approximately $2.85 million, which is 25% of the total budget and was exactly as expected. Generally, revenues are on target and I see no issues at this point in time. Questions?
Well, it's a lot to digest quickly, so your general sense of this is we're in good shape, just for a
Yes.
few blips?
Yes. Well, again, other legal will be addressed. That one is one that needs to be discussed.
Oh,
So other legals already over 53% expended, and we're not even
Correct.
halfway through the year.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's as of October.
Okay, cool. And then one other quick question was, we've been listening to all the discussions regarding the community center, and then one of the buildings they've been talking about is John Pettibone and the revenue it generates, but are we not charging for usage of that space, or,
No one in there yet.
because we budgeted 5,000 in revenue and
I'm
there's
not-
$0 to date?
I don't know who would be responsible for doing that, for renting the space out. So if there's no revenue, that means obviously there's been no rental of the space, or if there has been rental of the space, no revenue has been collected.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think anyone can go in there for rent because we haven't done all we need for zoning, is that correct?
That's incorrect.
Oh,
The gym can be used, the cafeteria. can
Oh,
be
those
used, all
rooms,
the
yeah.
rooms can be used.
you're right,
There's a
I'm
large
sorry.
number that can be used. And that are used.
Paul, I missed your question. Rental for,
The question was revenue for John Pettibone, $0 to date.
because there are no rentals right now.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I was
there
asking, I don't
Oh,
know.
oh.
Yeah.
We
I
have
don't
the
know.
gym and other areas have been used, he's right.
Thanks.
any other questions?
You said we're gonna have an opportunity at the
Yes,
next
ma'am.
council to ask questions since we just got this tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Next is the Film Commission, update on the past from the chairperson. We got an email later this afternoon from Valerie. She got her
Somebody's here.
dates.
Someone's here.
Oh, you're here instead? Okay, great. Excellent, okay.
Aren't you a fireman for crying out loud? Come on, talk to me.
Good evening. My name's George Barnett, and I'm here for Valerie Laura Mark and the Film Commission. And just Do you all have her annual report that she
Yes.
produced? So I won't read, I'll just give you a couple of quick highlights. The two big things we did in the last year are the summer film series, where we had 3 films that we showed on the green, and that was free to the citizens in New Milford, and they all had very good turnout, and we got very positive feedback on that. And then our big event, which recently wrapped up, is the New Milford Film Festival that we sponsor, and we support it and do a lot of work at that. And that's been going on, I think it's either the 3rd or 4th year, and it's been growing each year. And town businesses have been very happy. They say during the week when we have it, their business has increased. And they've done a lot of sponsorships and really supported it. And it's been a win-win for the community. So those are our 2 big events that we've done this year. And next year, we're talking about doing a couple of different things. One event we're trying to sponsor is during the week of the Oscars, either maybe Wednesday, Thursday night, have a social with all filmmakers in the area, whether they're directors or screenwriters or directors of photography, whatever. Get all the different people together in New Milford to hopefully they can all talk about the different projects, maybe work together, maybe generate some more film projects in New Milford. And we're always trying to, on our website you see it, and in other publications, we're trying to promote the beauty of New Milford to film in. And we have a lot of pictures for locations for people who want to film. So those are the things we're trying to do, and we're growing each year. And that's about it. Are there any questions?
Katie?
George, thanks for coming.
Sure.
Do you, have you, or if you know if Valerie has, reached out to somebody on the Economic Development Committee to have them come and chat with you regarding how they see you might be of use from their perspective? You know, because that's really sort of the function that should be at the top of the list. I know Councilman Esposito for some years was part of the Film Commission, and I think it's important that, and I did bring this up one of the meetings that I was at, that that relationship be broached again, because the movies and everything are lovely, and I know you do your best to show up New Milford, of course. But back in those days, we had a lot of people coming to town, aside from, you know, just the people that live here already, but when they come to make a movie or make a commercial, and we had quite a bit of influx of people spending money and, you know, spreading the word in the world of commercials. So I just wondered if you got in touch with them, they might be able to help you with some outreach in that direction.
No, it's a great idea. And I know Valerie has it on her list. I'm not sure if she's reached out yet, but she will very soon if she hasn't.
Yeah, I'd suggest that.
So,
It's
yeah, no,
just,
we definitely
you know, when
will.
I came to the first meeting last year, I brought that up. And
Right.
I mean, that is sort of the function, main function, I guess.
Understood.
I like your idea for the Oscars, though. That's fun.
Yeah, and we have another thing that we're talking about is having New Milford students make short films. But in regards to the town of New Milford, try to promote the town, and the top film would win some kind of prize, maybe some filmmaking equipment, something we haven't really ironed out all the details yet, but that's another thing that we're doing. But we'll definitely talk to the EDC.
Just to chime in, George, and thank you for coming tonight.
Sure.
When I first was on there, probably 12 years ago, it really was the focus of the Film Commission at the time as it was as an economic development driver. We were able to benefit from the 30% tax credits,
Right.
which were a big boost to the Connecticut film industry. And we did a lot to bolster our website, which happens at the time, and probably for many years, was under searches, was the top film website. It even had more hits than the state had. So I would encourage you to take another look at, as Katie is suggesting, using this as an economic driver, because 40% of a budget of a film is called below line, as you probably well know.
Right.
The 40% below line budget is what they use for craft services, for location services, whatever they need. And we were able to take advantage of that when we had Tim Allen's film here, The Six Wives of Henry LaFay, we had a lot of those commercials. They spent a lot of money in town, and the multiplier effect for that money is tremendous. It moves around the community about 3.17 times. So we had a big influx for a handful of years there, and I would, you know, I just glanced at your film commission site, and I'm surprised there's only 180 people that like that film commission page, considering so many people love the website.
Right.
I mean, we have one of the best libraries in the Northeast, and I would encourage you to try to drive more of that awareness through social media into the New York City Small Film Committee, community. It's an hour and 20 minutes away, depending on how you drive. I was told point blank by Tim Allen and Jenna Elfman and all those folks that came through, we live on a movie set. You guys should be absolutely astonished. You know, they were astonished at the look of the town. They said, it looks like a movie set here.
Right.
So as I look at the Film Commission as a wonderful thing to help promote people to get into the film industry here locally, but that's not what the money's for. The money is to drive films here to get a piece of that 40% below line number on every film budget. You know, the talent gets the upper 60%, and the locations get the 40.
No, absolutely, but you make a good point. You know, when the tax credit was there, it was a little bit easier, but we are definitely looking at that, and we are trying to get bigger films in there.
And just from locations, you know,
Right.
you got all these Silver Cup studios, and I see those studios in all those areas, and they're looking for close locations. You know, they load the trucks up in the morning, drive to New Milford for a week, and fill up some of the hotels and the restaurants and the shops would be a big help for us.
And one thing I will say, and I agree with that, but on the smaller side too, the film festival, I was involved with the Danbury Film Festival in 2008 to 2012, and there was the Kent Film Festival at that time, and both of those have gone away.
Yeah.
And now we have the New Milford Film Festival, and I think we have a really good opportunity to pick up the vacuum of losing those two.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's a great
And,
job of it.
Danbury used to fund the Danbury Film Festival for many years, and they got in a lot of people and a lot of films, and I think New Milford has the potential, maybe not to get that big, but we can definitely grow and bring in a lot of good stuff to the town.
Definitely. Thank you, George.
Thanks, George.
Dr. Muller?
Thanks, George. How many years ago did the state stop the 30% tax break?
It's at least 6 or 7, it's been a while.
Any of the surrounding states, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, have tax breaks for movies, do you know?
I think they do, but I'm not sure. I believe Massachusetts does, just because you see so many films, especially out of Boston, in the last years. So, but I'm not positive on that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, George.
Item 9, personnel. Move to accept replacement of the Senior Center Secretary 2, AFSCME Grade 7, with Commission on Aging Office Coordinator, AFSCME Grade 8.
Mr. Bolero, you come up.
We have a
and-
motion.
Second.
And Carolyn? And if you could, as they're preparing, if you could see there's a handout provided to the council members. This basically has some of our departments, and Councilman Hedick wanted to know by having some of these adjustments and some of the layoffs versus some of the hires, kind of where we are at this point in time. I want to give the council plenty of time to take a look at this. But you look at the one that's highlighted in yellow. This is the one where you have the office coordinator, which is a regrade. This is already in the budget for this year.
Correct.
It would include, even though it is in the budget, the differential is to the positive, $1,192.96, meaning a savings. If you look down at the bottom, it's a savings of, so far, when we're doing all these adjustments so far this year, of $72,799.93. But I'll let you talk about the Senior Center Office Coordinator.
So the office coordinator.
Well, just to be clear, so the positive numbers are a savings.
Correct, the negative is the
Negative
cost.
numbers.
That's
Let me say it a different way.
the
So,
first thing I
Okay,
saw when I
that's
saw
what
it.
I'm sure.
under budget, is shown as a positive and over budget, so the heading, put it in
Yes.
parentheses next time, so that way the negative is clear.
So negative.
Under is
Because
positive.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you for the schedule. I know you did it on your short notice.
Yeah, we got
Appreciate
it
you
done.
answering
Mark.
questions.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so, but from a cost perspective, this would, because of the timing of where it falls in the budget year, it is a cost savings to the town, as this was a budgeted position already of $1,192.96. I worked with Carolyn to update the job description. As a secretary too, there's been a lot of changes going on in the senior center and the commission meeting. I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the position. and-
Just the volume, you know, we made like 25 additions and changes in this job description that hasn't been looked at since 2000 by the town council. So it's long overdue, and she's been, you know, we have several secretaries who have been in that position and trying to do the job that needs to get done. So the job description needs to follow the duties that they do.
Again, I took the recommendation to make all the changes and highlight them. I know Dr. Maloney wanted to see what the changes were, so I hope this helps. Is the highlights effective for our highlighting what the changes are, so it's easy to track for everybody?
Yes, thank you very
So
much.
what do the highlights represent?
The changes to the job description from the...
Changes.
Additions and changes.
So
are highlighted.
before they weren't answering and directing calls
Well, they
to,
were, but it wasn't in the job description.
well, it says answers for telephone in the other job description.
Right, it has the answers to the job, but what we've done is we've just elevated the actual language to this. So now, providing assistance to the public, clients, participants, town agencies, and officials, instead of act as a receptionist, greeting the public as a representative of the senior center department in a professional and courteous manner.
The other thing we're doing too is being consistent. The position of the coordinator in social services and in the mayor's office are all grade 8. And so all the language is the same now.
Carolyn,
Okay.
at the grade 7, they weren't working on the My Senior Center site, were they? The database?
They were.
Oh, they were? Oh.
So then,
Sorry.
what difference have they had in their duties from this year compared to 2 years ago?
Not much. To be honest with you, not much.
So the job description is catching up with what the work actually is being performed.
Exactly.
So at what point then did the work change?
It just morphed itself into more and more as someone is sitting there, and as we change systems and technology, they just adapt, and we never change the job description. My senior center has been there for 8 years. It's never been in the job description.
And the
My senior center is a computer system we use.
And the volume of your appointments too, from the bus scheduling and whatnot, has
We have,
increased
2
significantly.
full-time buses, that happened in 8 years. We have two-way radio, that happened in 8 years. There was a lot of technology and changes in that gatekeeper's job.
And we've
That-
significantly increased staff over that time period as well, correct? No?
Changed a few people.
From 5 years ago? The Commission on Aging staff budget?
Well, we've added a chore service coordinator, which also prompted this change, because that is a grade 8 as well.
That's about 22 grand?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the union never took exception to the change in responsibility without having a written job description?
We did not catch any grievances based on the increase of duties, but
Okay. And then, you know, I have a particular affinity for not using the language demonstrated knowledge of under knowledge, skills, and abilities. Because I know a lot about a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean I can do it well. So I would-
one got through on me.
Yeah. I saw the rest of them.
Fair enough, so we can change the
Demonstrated ability
demonstrated knowledge.
too would be preferred.
Absolutely,
So you're making notes.
yes.
Okay,
Carolyn, what would you say is the priority for this position? Key role, key activity?
Bottom line is personal assistant to, you know, there are over 100 people that she sees every day. She is multitasking, that position is multitasking between the 8 or 10 programs you have that have 10, 12 people in them. You have lunch that has 40 people in them, and people are coming in and out, wanting to pay for programs, wanting, you know. answering the phone, we get 75 phone calls.
And there's a lot of liaison with you
Yes.
and Jasmine and all of that.
And then, the bus drivers are out there. She's
Right.
got a two-way radio. She's answering calls for that, sending the buses on, pickups and drop-offs.
Is Chore the only other program that this position has any access with in or out? It's nothing to do with wheels or, no, just the Chore?
No, chore service is totally different.
I know
That
Chore,
is-
but you just said something about Chore in
Well,
this.
when we hired, we were getting that position in, and we were looking at the job that it would entail, that was a grade 8. And then we were saying the secretary's position in the office is a grade 8.
I see, so you were referring to the fact that you're bringing this up to par.
Right.
Okay, I didn't see there was anything to do with Chore there. I was wondering how you slipped that in. Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Works for me.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 10, discussion and possible action regarding the community center, request for funding on a market research study.
Is that a motion or just a?
No, it's just, I didn't make a motion. It's too many things to,
Pass this around.
Yes,
I guess
please.
so, yes. Did you give me enough copies?
I need one more.
Here, pass one more.
And this particular handout is for the council. Mr. Winters, who's the vice chair of the community center committee, had asked town attorney Matt Grimes to opine on a legal review opinion or recommendation to any steps necessary to legally accomplish the creation of a community center. So Mr. Grimes opined on the legal authority and steps need to be taken.
Mayor, just a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
This document's dated November 21st, which was 1920, that was Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Was there any reason we didn't get it then?
Because it was late Wednesday.
Okay, or this morning? It's just, it's really hard for us to discuss something when we have to sit.
Well, we can discuss it at another time. It
Oh,
just-
okay.
We got it, I just wanted you to have
Okay.
it.
Yes,
This has nothing to do with this, nothing to do with the thing.
Okay, then.
So we
Off
can
to the
have it.
side it goes.
Correct.
All right. Good.
Okay.
Okay, so is there somebody making a
So-
presentation?
Any,
Well, I'll make a motion, that if we're not having anybody speak to us, a motion to accept the Community Center Committee's request for the funding of a market research study.
Second.
any discussion?
Yeah. And we have a bunch of members here that if we need to we can ask questions. Is that
Yep.
okay? I just, I appreciate all the work you guys have done because as I've said from the beginning, it's probably one of the most difficult groups to be in charge of because of just the varying opinions and everyone's going on there. So I'm not, I'm just not sure what we're going to get out of another survey, and I'm not saying it would I'm assuming it would be a lot more detailed than the one you guys did, but I'm just not sure where we're going with this. We've gone a long time without a community center, and it seems like we've had people from the library in here talking about how the new library is going to be a community center, and then we've had people that think that Pettibone being the community center. I'm just not sure we have, and I guess that's why you want to do I'm just going in circles here. Why you want to do a survey, but it's just. I don't know, we've gone long enough without it, I'm just not sure if this is the thing needed.
Lisa?
So, I've got an opinion on market research,
Yeah.
and very specifically, and I believe the discussions we've had in the prior town councils with the survey that the community center committee did on their own was that there was a question of statistical validity, number one, and number two, the methodology. So if you ask somebody, do you want more services from the town? It's like asking a customer, do you want a new product and do you want a better quality? They're going to say yes. So you have to structure the question in a way you're going to get actual usable data that's not going to surprise you. So that, in my experience, takes a professional firm to do. Nothing against what the Community Center Committee did. I think they made a valiant effort. But to make sure that the demographics of the people who answer the question, so for example, seniors tend to be home during the day. So if you're calling them, you tend to get a lot of seniors, you don't get the young moms with kids, you don't get the professionals, you don't get all of the different respective groups that you normally would. So that's the value that you have. So before you spend, I'm gonna make up a number, $20 million on a community center, whatever the number is, I think it's worthwhile to spend some money up front to make sure you get the features right and to make sure we understand what are the trade-offs that the citizens are willing to make. So to ask a question, and I think part of why the referendum for the library was such a success is that we had some meat on the bones to that, right? Are you in favor of, here's how much it's going to cost, and here are the features that it's going to have, because we had the detailed plans. People can wrap their heads around yes or no on that. Right now, if you ask them a question, the general population, a referendum, do you want a community center? We might get yes, but then when the price tag comes later and we don't know what it is, and it may have a pool, it may not have a pool, we might be heading down the wrong path. It might seem like a waste of money. I have yet to experience it when you do it right and ask the right questions, that you don't get the right product that people want and are willing to pay for at the back end.
Well, I guess my point is, people, when New Milford was growing, people came here without a community center. They came here because it was the least expensive alternative to places south of here. And I just, you know, and you know, I'm talking to one of the kids that works for me, and he's looking for housing, and he's talking about Washington because the tax is lower. And I said, well, the cost of the house is probably more, so it will offset itself. But he didn't say, you know what, I'm going to Washington because they have a community center. It was cost, and I'm afraid that if we go down a route, you know, we're doing a huge renovation in the library. I just don't know if our town needs a community center. And I mean, if it takes, and if that's part of the question too, if in the survey, if you feel this is needed, then maybe it is a good idea. I just don't know if it's. We've never had this whole discussion of the community center until Pettibone became the elephant in the room, and so I'm just, you know, that's my point is. Does this town need a community center? I don't know. We have a downtown. That's where everyone goes when they want to see the community. We have events downtown. That's where people congregate. We're adding the library, which is even better reason to congregate there. We're talking about riverfront revitalization. The better. But those things, you know, are happening slowly, and it does get people to come to town. To, you know, that's where the parade is downtown. We're not having the parade over at Pickett District. We're having it downtown. So I know that, you know. So it's just, this doesn't, to me, it just, we don't need one, but that's, you know, that's my opinion, and it's 109.
Mike, I have to disagree with that. I'm all in, you know, and again, speaking as an individual, I'm all in favor of community center. I don't know what happened over the weekend. I must have missed a day or 2 or 3 in the calendar, but I was driving south on 7. When I drove by Pettibone, there had to be 200 cars in that parking lot. I don't know what was going on in that building. Obviously, it seems to be attracting, it seems to be an umbrella bringing in things. And, you know, for the time being then, let's see how this plays out without saying, let's throw it under the bus.
Okay.
Well, the question here is about spending the money to have a market research study done, and I wasn't 100% for it, nor was I against it. However, I started to ask people that some of them I don't really even know, what do you think about the whole idea of a community center? Some people have no idea what you're talking about, and some have a very definite opinion, yes or no. But as whether I think that this is, I think a little bit we're putting the horse before the cart when it comes to the study before we even know what the cost, because as Lisa pointed out, you ask somebody, would you like to have this? Yeah, sure, why not? Until you tell them what it costs. But I think we should go ahead and have a study done by a professional agency. I think we all sort of agreed to that. And I would like, my only comment about that is they've done a lot of work. I respect it all. You know, we sit here and do a lot of things and nothing ever comes of it. It gets frustrating. I'm sure you guys all felt the same. But I would like this to be handled the same as any Any expenditure that the town makes, I think we need to go in, I'm not saying there's something wrong with Blue Cloud.
Great
Great Blue. I had that cloud in my mind. But I would like to see it go out for bid like we do other things. I'm not saying you didn't do, please don't take offense that I'm saying this. I'm happy to have the study done, but doesn't really cost us anything but a tad of manpower and an advertisement to put this out for a bid. And then, as was already brought up before, I think then we're just let somebody who hasn't got anything to do with this look at it and come up with the kind of questions, and to include people from your committee and the council people. But I think that step should be taken by our bid process. And then in that case, I'm all for doing the research study to find out what people really want.
If we're gonna do, and we're, I'm gonna say real quick,
Mike?
if we're doing something, I mean, these guys have a deadline now that's looming. If we push this off a little bit to do bids,
What deadline?
well, I mean, I guess we can extend their.
I guess we can. Yeah, I think we can. I mean, this is a very big deal that they've spent a lot of time on, and we've also spent that time also listening, and they've been trying to tell us what they wanted to tell us. And I think if we've gotten to the point where the last thing to be decided is whether we're going to get a study done and spend the money, that's up to us being able to allocate the money to spend for this. But if we're going to do that, which I think it is necessary, and I was not a proponent, this doesn't have anything to do with whether your personal feelings. My personal feelings don't come into play here. I talk to people, I listen to what people say. We always talk about who puts us here. And if people who voted for us think it's a good idea we explore this possibility of a community center, nothing to do with that building down there, shall remain nameless, but then I think we have to do that. That's why we're here. And if it takes a few dollars to do it, we do it the right way. We go through a bid process. We work on making sure we're asking the right kind of questions and see what that brings. Otherwise, we're not doing ourselves any service either.
Mike?
Just a few things. I know that maybe this will help Mike, that and this is not the first library committee that was ever invented, but after it took 3.5 years, and this was our third attempt to even go forward. So the community center is not going to happen next year. It's just not going to happen. I like the idea of research. I like the idea of exploration. But what I'd like to see is, from the responses, how is the community center defined? Are we doing town stuff, social services? Are we doing, you know, when I was growing up in Newtown, we'd have to sneak into the town hall to go use the gym to play basketball on a Sunday afternoon. Wouldn't it be great to be able to have a place where the kids can go? So I think in the responses or in the information gathered, that if we could define the community center and what people want out of it. Do we want it open to the public? Do we want a pool? How much is the pool? You know, and be able to get some of the answers and then decide if Pettibone is the right place. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But I think it's 18,000 for the study, is that right?
Give or take 18 to 20, I think.
That was the last number I heard.
You guys got it right.
18 change, 18.5.
Okay, so my opinion is, and I agree with you, Katie, and I like the way you phrased it, despite what I'm thinking in my head, my personal opinion, you know, we owe it to the public to move forward with $18,500 to get the research done and see what the community wants.
Here. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Oh,
Just I know there's discussion about the library, but I guess my question is just one of a pragmatic sense and practical sense. When the library project started getting momentum this last project, the momentum was behind having some real quality detailed numbers associated with what the renovation was going to be. And one of the things I heard time and time again from people in the years and years and years, it never got to the ballot or a potential town meeting was, we don't really know what the costs are going to be. So tonight what I'm hearing is the council's suggesting we go forward with a request to ask questions of the public when we have no idea what such a facility would cost. And when I talk to people, what's more important to them is what something costs and what they get out of it, as opposed to the idea of a community center. I think we'd be hard pressed to find anyone in this community who wouldn't want a community center.
But wasn't the original charge, Jeff, and you're there, Michelle, wasn't the original charge to, or what you guys got to, was to find out from the residents how they picture what they think a community center should be? Is that correct? In other words, you wanted to find out that whether they thought it needed a pool and a municipal office, or if it needed just to have an exercise room and no municipal offices, or a basketball court. Wasn't that the original thing you talked about several times? That rather than getting people to decide, Paul, whether they want something they don't know what it's going to cost, it was just to define what the people wanted. And then from there, we'd go forward with, well, what do we have or what do we need? Like Lisa said, is it $40 million? Is it a building we already own? But we don't even know what the residents think a community center should be to them. I mean, they each know what they think it means to them, but we don't know what they think.
So if you go to a taxpayer tomorrow, and we have winter approaching, and we know our roads are gonna get worse, Katie. This is unbudgeted.
Don't
We don't have
blame
this
Jeff
in our
for our
budget.
roads. He doesn't really have anything.
But I'm asking you, Katie, the people you say you talk to,
Yes.
right? And you have $18,500. And you go ask 10 people tomorrow, do you want to spend $18,500 on a market research on if we want a community center or not? Or some additional money to do roads?
That's where I just said is, I don't believe that's the question to be asked. Do you want a community center or not? Paul, if there were to be a community center where you live, what do you envision that being made up? That's the way I envision the question being asked, if that was the question. Now, I could be wrong, but that was what I thought the whole point of this committee was, not to ask every other person whether or not you want one before we even know what it costs, but to find out what do people think it should be. Because some people don't think we need one because all of the things they think are important are already taken care of.
So then we're asking the market research firm to do what we charged the committee to do.
Yes, because what we thought when they did it, if they admitted it wasn't a professional job, they're asking based on what they know, and that everybody thought it was, I mean, I'm not making this up, you guys were all in the room with me, that a professional market research company would do the job that should be done on this. I mean, you can't build your house on shaky foundation, and get a professional.
Before you build a house, you have a budget and you know what's going to pay.
But we're not building the house. All we're going to say to you is, what do you want in your house?
Before you build a house,
You have a budget.
you have a design.
Yes.
So
And the
before you
design-
build a house, you get pre-approved to see how much you can afford before you go and design the mansion. So
Wait. So,
That's the reality.
But at some point, you have a design, and then you gotta suss out all your options. And the price goes up, and the price goes down, and eventually you get to it. So I'm gonna kind of marry up the different pieces of the conversation. So if you think about the library process, and I just had a light bulb moment. So in what you said about the cost, right? So you figure out what are the features that people really want, pool or no pool. Then you get some type of design and cost estimate, and then you go forward. So there's probably more steps than we thought needed to happen to get us to a salient question that people can answer yes or no, and have a good feeling that the answer isn't going to have some bad surprises in it. I think the reason we all rallied around the library referendum question was because there was a design, there was a clear amount of money, we knew where it was going to go, and so you can say yes or no to that, as opposed to this, as Katie states, this idea, you know, nobody's going to say no to a community center, but if we're going to trade off for other things, it's one step in the process, and it's the first right step before you go off for a design, because otherwise you're spending money on a design that says, okay, pool in scenario A, but no pool in scenario B, so come up with 4 different house plans for me, then I'll pick from one of those. It's going to cost us a lot more.
No, but don't you design the house to what you can afford?
Yes, and part of that process is deciding which features, do I want hardwood floors or do I want carpet?
If I can't afford hardwood, I don't have
Yeah,
it.
but
That's
you gotta,
all-
but
that's
listen, you gotta
all
establish
part of
you gotta establish a budget line that you're gonna, I mean, you're gonna use the analogy about building a house. Listen, the reality is, nobody knows what this thing is going to cost. The last presentation, I heard numbers from a $2 million renovation to a $30 million pool. Okay, I don't know, didn't somebody bid, or
Yeah.
$20 million, I don't know. We
He's not wrong, he's
we
not
heard
wrong
some
with those numbers.
wild numbers at the last
There were
time.
some wild numbers.
There were some
You're not wrong.
wild numbers here. I would like to see a little bit more, I'm in favor of doing the study, but I don't know if I'm in favor of doing the study right this second until we get a little bit more of a definition of what this is really going to be. I mean, we could say, does the town want a community center? Where does it want it? I mean, when I sat on the POCD 10 years ago, and I'm sitting on it again now, we had market research groups where people said, where would you like your recreation? And they gave everybody a bag of dots, and there was maps all around the room. We did it over at Pettibone, and people went around and said, I'd like my recreation here. And they counted up the amount of dots, and the group of people were in favor of this. We're right in the middle of starting the plan of conservation and development. Why does this need to happen right this very second when we potentially could do a little bit of this work in the POCD and come up with something that's a little bit more defined so that when we do spend 20 grand, which at the end of the night, I'm really not in favor of spending any money until I hear the last conversation we're going to have in executive session, then maybe at that point we can say, okay, we have a bit of an idea of what the town is looking for because we've just spent these last few months in the plan of conservation and development, which by definition is the plan of conservation and development. Are we developing a community center? Are we conserving the land for a community center? Let's get a little bit of that together and then wind up doing a survey that's going to be comprehensive. And I'd like to see some numbers. Do you want a community center at Pettibone? The base number to do Pettibone is this. The base number to build a brand new building someplace else is X. I'd like a little bit more meat on the bones here, or a little bit more detail, let's say, or a little bit deeper pre-qualification, if I go back to my mortgage days, of what we're actually going to spend and what's it going to cost us to get there before we drop 20 grand on a survey that tells us what everybody wants to hear is, yeah, of course we want a community center.
Dr. Moe?
What is it going to give us? I'm sorry, to rant.
No, we like those rants.
I know you do.
If there was a number of 20 million for a pool, I can very clearly say, you better have an Olympic-sized pool. And when I say Olympic, I mean 100 meters by, I think it's 25 meters wide.
Not 50 meters.
Is it 50 meters wide?
Long.
No.
The regular pool is 25
50 meters
yards.
by 25 meters.
Yes.
I think it's an Olympic pool.
Correct.
There are only a handful literally in the entire country. So for 20 million, you could build that. So that number's just ridiculous, so please stop saying it, okay?
And don't, just to go, I'm not against the pool. I'm not against it at all. The last meeting, the only reason I mentioned that number was we heard a range here that went from as low as 10 or 12 up to $40 million.
People just throw these numbers out and there's no information. So therefore, you really want to build an aquatic center in this town? Depending on what you want, it'd be $4 to $6 million. That's what it would be. I can tell you that pretty clearly. All right. And that gets to the real point of you need more information. When I go to work every day and I do diagnosis, I need to get as much information as I can before I start that treatment plan. And that's part of the diagnosis. It's the same thing when you're dealing with any problem. You got to get as much information as you can get. This is a way to get more information. The POCD is great, but you're not going to get a ton of input from the public on that. I mean, some people will show up, but we all know how many people show up. It's a small amount. You get a better idea and a better cross-section by doing a survey like this. You know, it was said before we don't need a community center. There's a lot of things we don't need. You know, you can get through life with really minimal stuff if you wanted to. But again, if you want to make your town better, if you really want to improve your town, you know, there are things that attract people to town. Number one is education. You know, that's young families coming to town, want to see what the education is, and they want to see how it rates against other towns in the area. You go on Zillow, you'll see how your school system is rated. People, when they're looking at houses, aren't going to go a lot deeper than that. You have to do things to make your town attractive. Education, recreation, just the whole appearance. We have a downtown that is better than none. So, better than all. Second to none. I got my two phrases mixed up there, pardon me.
We got it though.
So that's why you do it. You get information. You really get a feedback from the people. And then you can get going into the details. So this is really where we start with a concept. And the concept is getting accurate information to move forward with whatever information we get. So it's not going to be 20 million, don't worry about that. Newtown got 21 million donated to them. How much did they get?
15.
15? Yeah.
18? 18.
I'd be in favor of 15 million doing it.
What's that?
I'd be in favor of 15 million.
Somebody gave us 15 or 18.
But, you know, Pete, just to your point though, your point was before you made the analogy that you would dig deeper into your patient, right, to see what the root of the problem was.
Dig deep, root of the problem? Are you
Right,
making
yeah,
jokes
I'm making
in
all
this?
sorts of jokes here for you. I'm lining you up here. The point is, you're right. But you don't just ask the opinion of the people sitting in the waiting room, what's wrong with your patient sitting in the chair. You actually figure out by x-rays and obviously a medical history and figuring out whether they've got the budget to do the procedure that you want to do on them.
Mm-hmm.
They may need crowns and you can't do crowns. You have to do some sort of temporary fix. I don't think there's anybody who's against the community center making this community better. Not one person in this room. The people in the audience and the people sitting here, or else we wouldn't be doing this. I'm in favor of doing a survey. I would like to see more work done prior to the survey, so at least we have some budgetary numbers to say an aquatic center is a $4 million endeavor. Let's put that in the survey. If you had $4 million to spend and it would cost you X amount of dollars over the next 10 years to do that, is that something you're in favor of? But let's give a number to that. Let's give a number to a building, whether it's Pettibone or a brand new facility on a larger piece of property that we may be able to bring fields together with and your aquatic center. I mean, I'm not looking at this as just some small little project. I think if we do this right, we can really build something that's going to attract people here. I'm not against this at all. But I mean, I'm talking about something that's not just a little, do we have a place to go have a couple of robotics meetings? I'm talking about maybe building something here on a larger piece of land where the fields are around it, so people don't have to drive from one town to another and not see half their families on the weekends because they're going to one soccer field or a football field on opposite ends of the town. I'm talking about something grander that's maybe one giant spot that we can bring all of these, as many of these teams and fields together as much of this facility in one spot.
Okay, well,
It may take 10 years to do, it may take 20 years to do, but I think that's where we should be looking and not just, do we need a place to have a couple of meetings? That's my opinion.
I'll defer to Mike.
Mike?
So maybe the idea is to ask the committee tonight to interview 3 prospective survey companies.
I wanted to go through our bid process. That's
All
just
right,
my
okay.
time. That's just me.
So,
That's all me.
stop. So we'll
Don't
do the
punch
bid
it.
process, fine, but to
But part of the
ask,
specs.
wait, just stop for a second. But just to ask the committee to get the folks in front of us and say, hey, how do you do the process? What are the types of questions you ask? So that we can have an understanding, because obviously we're not quite seeing eye to eye here.
Right. And I just want to comment on something you said, so everybody understands. The library went through 3 committees over 10 years. Every single committee had a definite price. First time was way too high, second time was much lower, and then, but there was something else coming along that I think the expenditures were decided would be better. And clearly what you said is true. Without having any definite specifics, it's really hard to sell things. And that's why I said my feeling was we weren't trying to sell anything by having a market research done. And by saying, what you're saying, Tom, I understand it's your idea, but the minute you say a pool, you're putting what you think I want in a community center. So a market research study asks what the market, that's what market research is. You ask your market, what is it you feel a community center should be? What does it mean to you and your family? And maybe nobody wants a pool. Maybe they all want pool tables. We don't know. And we shouldn't presume to know. That's my point. That's one of the main reasons why I changed my thinking to the positive for this study, because we only can know what we know. And my famous saying is, there's an awful lot we don't know that we don't know. So we got 29,000 people, let's go through a bid process, let's get a market research firm who does this for a living, and we're not trying to reinvent their wheel, and let them do it, because if we, and there's no rush, I gotta say, it took all those years for the library, so anybody who thinks this is gonna happen quickly,
But, I mean, is this
No.
sample gonna be more than 400 to 600 people?
it'll be what these people say it's gonna be, where, you're coming up with a number.
1,000?
We don't know.
Well,
Don't
They'll
know.
define the statistical.
yeah, we can't say what
It's up to
statistically.
them.
I'm just saying, how many, so
Statistically, if you've got 400 for this town, that would be
400 people, so fleshing it out is different avenues. I mean, to ask the question, what do you want?
You never ask the question.
No,
Of
that's
course
not how they do
But
it.
that's what I'm hearing is we're trying to ask the question, the point of the survey is to ask the community what they are looking for. Is that what I'm not hearing?
Here's what I heard, if you were to communicate this and jump in here, I'm sure you guys won't be shy, is the first market research objective, because that's what you give the firm, you don't tell them what to ask, would be to identify the public's perception of what a community center is, centralized, decentralized, share municipals, don't share, but identify the public perception of a community center, and then the secondary objective would be to identify the features that a majority of the residents would want to see in a design. I had to think about that carefully. Now, I've been talking a lot and continuously about this idea of a conjoint analysis, but if we continue to talk further, it's probably too soon to do that. So conjoint analysis is a very specific type of market research. It's what Southwest and JetBlue did before they launched their airlines. You mix the features and functionality with the cost in such a way that people can't game the system, and you really find out what they want and what they'll pay. But we probably aren't that far because we don't have the cost estimates. But we can definitely mix and match the features and benefits as well as the location and probably get a statistically valid answer.
But we have to start.
And that's the starting point. You said it beautifully, you have to gather the information. Without the information, everybody just got an opinion and we all think we're right and we're never gonna move forward. So this is actually the way to move forward. And it costs a little bit of money. I'm going to say a little bit because in the greater scheme of things, let's say it's only $2 million, but I'd want to spend $20,000 now, I'm rounding up, on spending $2 million later and get it right versus spending $2 million and having nobody show up because it doesn't have the stuff they want in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but as you're standing now, you're talking about having two surveys. We're gonna first establish what everybody's looking for.
No.
And then we're gonna put a number together associated with what they like, and then we're gonna go back out to that group and say, okay, now that
Yeah.
we've figured out after this survey.
That wasn't what I said.
So, all right, well then, but that's what it's appearing to me. If the beginning here, if the initial survey is to determine what the community is looking for, and there's no number associated with it, then aren't we gonna eventually have to go back to the community again and say,
And then,
the community likes the idea of a pool, and that number is $4 million. The
Yeah.
community, whatever those numbers
so
are.
think about the library referendum question. So, do you want a librarian? Are you willing to spend $6.5 million in bond money? Same idea. So the second round could be as simple as the referendum question because we'll have the market research, plus then we'll have a design and a cost.
Walter is the same, not Walter.
Walter?
Hey, Walter, can I come in for one second? Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yes.
The motion is to discuss.
I'm sorry, could you read if there is a motion on the floor, Walter, you don't mind, do you? I just want to find out.
I'm with you on that. Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Katie moved and you seconded it.
What is the motion?
He's second, he should.
And the motion is?
Not that.
That we fund a market
The
research
motion
study.
is action regarding the community center committee's request for funding of a market research study.
I'm sorry,
One more time, louder.
the shell went off over here. This is my good area. You gotta do it again.
Let's do that here. Katie moved action regarding the community center committee's request for funding of a market research study. And you seconded it.
Okay?
Move
Talking
to
about
accept
funding
it,
market
not
research.
Yes.
Yes. But we don't have an amount on it?
And what was the account to be taken from?
We didn't get that far. We didn't get to the amount yet.
But it's a motion, we're voting on
To,
Yes.
to accept their request.
What you're going to need to do, if you're going to fund something, is you're going to need to request a special appropriation from the Board of Finance not to exceed a certain amount of money
Exactly.
for this purpose.
But wait a minute.
No. My question, I have the floor. I've been waiting patiently.
Actually, Walter has the floor.
He's running about the motion.
Walter
You wanna
said
know
yes.
about the motion?
He's done.
My point to the people who made the motion is, earlier today, our Director of Finance said he wants to discuss our other legal line because he can correct me if I'm wrong. There's a concern there may not be enough money in it.
Right.
So what account are we proposing to take this 20,000 from?
No, me.
To that.
No, the people who made the motion.
I made the motion. My motion was to move on the request for funding of a market research study.
So not how much,
Just
not from
to
where.
get this group to say, yes, we would move forward with that. And my only suggestion on top of it, outside that motion, was that we do it through our normal bid process. That's the motion, and that's what was seconded.
But that-
There's no
So
dollars.
we already have dollars because they presented us with a proposal
Oh,
about
they gave
2
us a
months ago.
proposal from Blue Sky. and-
Great blue. Killing me, man.
Those poor people. No, I just wanted, we had here
So say
on
the
our
bids come
agenda-
back at $50,000.
No,
Oh,
no,
I'm
no,
not-
no.
So say they come back
We
at
have,
5,000.
no, we have bid
Can
already.
we
for
first
18.
agree as a council that we're okay with doing the market? We've just spent a half hour talking about whether we even want to do a market research study. I don't know if we can have enough time tonight to talk about how much money we're willing to spend for it.
But isn't that what we do when we make a motion to appropriate money? It's at
I
a
didn't
dollar
say
amount
anything
from the
about
account.
money. I didn't say anything about appropriating any money.
But how can we vote if we don't
So
have a
can
number?
we vote on the
Definitely
RFP?
voted no.
Can we vote whether or not to have an RFP? And that's open-ended then. We
I
can
just
choose,
wanted to
depending
know
upon the money, to say
if
yes
we
or
could
no.
Approve as a group to go forward, and let's move forward with this market research study. If we do it through our bid process, that becomes an RFP. It becomes,
Okay,
But
so
it becomes-
just to be clear, the motion on the floor is to fund a market research study
there was no
with
word.
no amount
Okay.
and no known ability to pay for said study. Just to be clear.
It's to approve their request.
No, I'm asking you to answer yes or no. So the motion doesn't include how much money and how we would pay for it.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Just real quick, these guys, we just said it, 2 months ago they came to us and said we want to go to this company. Why at then did we say we should get bids? I mean, I'm just wondering, because you say we have all the time in the world, except that we have a building that is being pseudo-used for that, and that building needs work. So the longer we put it off, the longer we put off doing any work at that building, which with winter coming with that roof, that
That's
might be
one
a
of the
big
reasons,
thing.
Mike, because you're not able to talk about a community center without bringing in an existing
I
building.
know, but
That's
I mean,
why.
my point is, we're using that building, we have to make a decision at one point if we're gonna do anything that
But that's
building, and
not,
there's.
this isn't part of that.
But-
And that's not part of this.
But your point, but you guys say we have all the time in the world, but.
We
well,
do.
Well then, but we still have a building that needs to be maintained and knowing the
Then we
cost
should
of
put that
that.
on an agenda and discuss it as a council. But I don't think we need to discuss that building and what this committee has brought forward, which is about having a community center, the need for, or lack of need for a community center in our town. We need to keep those two things separate.
All right, then we do need to start having a separate talk because, and I know I'm biased here, but there's a list of people that want to use the lot of empty space and we're already heating the whole thing.
Yes, you are biased, and that's, you know.
But we're
you
heating the
have-
whole, but we're still heating the whole building and we're not utilizing it properly.
We have 200 people in the parking lot, and we don't have any money coming in from it, if you
Yeah,
ask Greg.
so because
I
there's
mean,
no-
Here we go.
We're using this building fantastically, but nobody's paying for it.
Yeah, and there's, and I understand that, the nonprofit's not gonna pay, market rate, but they are doing a service for the town.
Okay.
Which is something, I know it's a separate issue, but it's something.
Mayor, I withdraw my motion.
Gotta withdraw your second.
Walter, I'm withdrawing the motion
You're wrong.
as stated.
why am I withdrawing my section, the second? What are we gonna do now then?
We can go back and make another motion. So I just wanted to get this group to talk about whether we would do a market research study, and we have talked about it quite a bit. But we
Well,
still haven't come to a
obviously,
decision.
we have.
So I'm
So
gonna
make a
withdraw
motion
my
and vote on
motion.
it.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion, and we can make another motion that can have a maximum amount of funding based upon the outcome of our meeting with our finance director.
Oh, my goodness.
However you want it, I don't want, Paul says it's out there, it's open-ended because there's nothing mentioned about the money. I didn't want to get into the money because if we do it through our bid process, that would be a next step, but, so I'll withdraw.
But the motion, the original motion is open-ended. There's no request for funding there. All it's asking for is
Right,
a
but that's
market
upsetting,
research.
that's upsetting
So I'll
Councilman
be hard
Smansky.
pressed to withdraw my second.
Okay.
I'm in favor of this motion.
Okay,
So just to be clear, Walter, you're in favor of funding a study, not knowing how much it will cost and how we will pay for it, considering we did not budget
No,
for it.
no,
I can amend the
Councilman, I
motion.
don't think that's the point. All it's given permission that we're gonna hire somebody or talk to somebody to take a look at doing a market research.
I thought the motion was to fund the study, so I apologize.
I can amend the motion.
I did not get that impression.
So I apologize. I thought they said fund.
The word funding is in the
It
way
does say,
it's written.
it does say request of funding, so.
Yes, the word funding is
You're
there.
not-
Can I amend
you're
my
not-
motion, Mayor?
Then add,
Walter?
if you're second approved.
Walter, I'm going to amend.
Yes, I
I'm
will
going to
withdraw
amend my
second.
motion.
That's,
I'm going to
me.
amend my
The
motion.
horse is dead on the floor here.
Say it slowly, though.
You ready? I'm going to amend it.
Go.
And I'm going to say that I would like us to move to take action on the request of the centers, community center committees, request for funding of a market research study to be done through the town's normal bid process and not to exceed $20,000. Account to be determined by the mayor and the board of the finance director.
Second.
Question, let's ask the town attorney, can we do that?
No. What you need to do
I amended
is,
it.
what you need to do is, as a council, as the extension of the legislative body, you need to request a special appropriation from the Board of Finance not to exceed a certain amount of money for this purpose. You can recommend as a council what line items it's transferred from, but the ultimate recommendation, appropriation decision is made by the Board of Finance, and if they don't do what you want, you can overrule them with a 2/3 vote. But that's what you need to do if you want to fund a study.
So I should remove the mention of the finance director.
Not to exceed.
I said not to exceed $20,000.
Okay, from the Board of Finance, and it's over there.
And don't mention the mayor then.
You can, but I mean, the Board of Finance is ultimately gonna have to say yes or no.
Councilman Samansky.
Yeah, I'd just like to know from the director of finance what his recommendation of what account it would come from.
If he can tell us that, how come he can't tell us the other thing? That's my question.
I'm not sure at this point, to be honest with you.
Well, that's why I said to be
I think
determined.
that you would want to wait until after executive session.
I tried that before.
I don't know
Nobody wanted
if
that.
We want to
waste
table this until
management
after that?
would be an option. The Waste Management Fund.
Okay,
Do you want to just table this till after executive session?
I'll just withdraw the motion. I tried that once.
Mike?
So I guess we have to wait until after executive session to make a more informed decision.
I would like to withdraw the motion.
Can we bring this back up at the next meeting after we've had this meeting? Because
Yeah,
I don't
can we
think
do
this executive session is going to be a quick
Can we still get the bid process going on the next
Yeah,
session?
I'm gonna withdraw my
Matt,
second.
I've
I'm gonna
withdrawn
take
my
the Walter
motion. What has to happen next to make somebody listen to what I said? I have withdrawn my original motion.
And your second?
I will not withdraw my second of your amended motion.
You have to?
What are we doing here? We spent a half hour on this. What are we
Only
doing
because he wants us to
here?
wait. If you want us to, can we carry it forward, Matt?
You can table it and take it up after the executive session or
Okay
whenever you
then,
want to.
Mayor, let's table it.
I'm not in favor of.
We're gonna table it till after executive session. It's still on the floor. Just the floor is gonna change.
You need to vote for the law.
What, you need a cigarette?
Okay.
I need 3 fingers of Jack Daniels. Right now, wow.
After executive session, you may need 6.
Where's the
Okay.
bar?
So just for housekeeping,
We're gonna
for our
table.
secretary.
I'm
So
sorry.
we had Katie withdraw her motion, but,
I withdraw my
Okay.
second
all right, so it's
reluctantly.
withdrawn. So now there's a motion to table,
There's no
And
motion now.
There's no
excuse
motion.
me,
Right, no new motion.
excuse me. Walter Bear was getting ready to make the motion. Were you ready to make the
No,
motion to
second.
table or no?
I'd like to make a motion to table the discussion of, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Until the end.
Until
of
after
After
executive
13.
session.
Yes.
As that after 13?
After item 13 on our
Okay.
agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion to table?
I
All
don't
those-
think such thing is, regardless of what we vote on
for
tonight, we
God's
should
sake.
go, no, stop. Regardless of what we do tonight, we might as well go forward to getting 3 bids, even if we don't end up voting it. We can get the more bids, so next time we have the actual cost.
We're gonna come back after item 13.
All those in favor of tabling until 13?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
All right, item 11, public hearing. 11A,
We didn't close it.
Nope, we did not close public hearing, so number 11 is pushed off.
oh, that's right, that was alarms.
Yep.
So it's still open. 11B, inspection fees,
Was that still?
still open.
Yep. So those are pushed off.
Right.
They're pushed off. Item 12, Mayor's Office. Move to accept a resolution as presented. Be it resolved that the town of New Milford may enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate. And it's further resolved that Pete Bass, as mayor of the town of New Milford, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of New Milford and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents with regard to the federal fiscal year 2018 Homeland Security Grant Program.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 13, move we go into executive session, and we want to ask Mike Zarba and John Tower.
And Randy, John Tower's not here, he's ill.
Attorney
So-
DeBella, Attorney
Abby.
Grimes,
Abby.
and be out for item number last name.
Yep.
Attorney
And-
Miranda.
And Mike?
Mike said,
Nope.
Mike Z?
No.
Greg kept trying to get his hand up. We've got
I thought he was done. So no motions are made. No votes.
Thanks, Walt.
Okay, we're back. Everybody back? So we're out of executive session. No motions were made, no votes were taken. Move that we return to regular session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, I suspend the rules to add an item 14 to our agenda. Motion to suspend.
Second.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move that an appropriation from the unassigned fund in the amount of $250,000 be moved into account 10413-900-53101, legal extra account.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, can we just ask Matt, make sure that wording's okay, or do we need to?
Does it need to be say anything about Board of
It
Finance?
needs to be request a special appropriation from the Board of
A
Finance.
special appropriation?
Not to exceed such and such amount.
I got the amount. Special appropriation from the Board of Finance?
Yes.
Okay, Stephanie?
Got it.
I'll amend to say it's a special, I'm moving a special appropriation from the Board of Finance from the unassigned fund for $250,000 to count 10413-900-53101, legal extra account.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now,
Back to our tabled item, which was item number 10, Community Center.
You have to take it off the table first? Move to the table.
move to untable it. For better vernacular. Do I have a motion to do
Yes, so
that?
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. And Stephanie, do we have a motion on the floor, on the table, on anywhere?
I believe
No.
you.
No, it was
all-
rescinded,
Correct.
correct?
Well, you amended,
Okay.
but I think you finally
Correct.
table,
Okay.
sorry, finally withdrew.
Right. So
It was
there's
withdrawn
nothing
and the
now.
second was withdrawn by Ms. Ida, okay. Now, Mr. Szymanski, did you want to make a motion in the vernacular you would like to hear?
No, based on the fact that we just took $250,000 out of our unassigned fund. I don't want to make any motion.
Okay.
But you can feel free to.
No, I thought you wanted to do it.
You want to leave the table?
Why can't we just wait to get some bids in and figure out who we're gonna go with and go with that? I mean, if we have to, if
Are
you
you
wanna
gonna pay
get,
for it, Mike?
I don't know.
Okay. Why don't we answer that question first?
Just because you solicit RFPs doesn't mean you have to accept one of those bids.
You're
Correct.
implying you are.
That's right.
Right, Glenn?
But in order
Correct
for
me if I'm
us,
wrong. I mean,
but in order for us to go out for a bid and solicit those bids, we need to have a parameter of what it's going to cost, and we need to ask for it to come out of wherever it's going to come out of by virtue of an appropriation from our Board of Finance. So we can't do it in a vacuum.
so we just took $250,000 out of our unassigned fund.
I was
That's
there.
money that we didn't budget for.
I was
Just
there.
that.
Correct.
So whether it's five, I just want to get the consensus of this commission, this council, that you're okay even if it's 10 grand, when we just spent $250,000 unanticipated.
No,
And the winter hasn't even started yet.
it's not okay for me, unfortunately.
So what are you saying, Paul? You want to throw this under the bus or what?
Nope, not at all, Walter. I want to be fiscally responsible. The winter's just starting.
I'm not arguing that.
You know I'm a numbers guy, Walter. And all I ask is if people want to spend money, you tell me where you want to spend it from
So
within the budget that we have.
Can I just interject, Walter? Let's think about this. Maybe it's a bit of a compromise. So Tom mentioned the fact that we are starting on the POCD, which is encompassing some things like this. We did just have a rather large transfer of funds. We are at that point where, we're almost at the end of the year. New budget is starting. What if we were to table it with the idea that, but not drop it, but to look at the POCD discussion with this light on it as well. Maybe garner something from that. And I think when the first opportunity, I mean, I can't, who knows what the first opportunity is going to be, but that we'll ever have enough money. But I think it's deserving, as I said before, that's just me, I'm only one, but I think we do need to have the market research to know anything about this. I think it is important simply because it's got a life of its own and we're still talking about it all this time later. And I don't want to dismiss that. There's a reason that we're still talking about it, and I don't think we should just throw it out.
I got no problem with the market research. If you wanna let it lie dormant for a while, okay.
Yeah, I don't want the committee to think it's being thrown away.
No, I don't wanna see this buried.
No, I'm willing to
agree.
extend the committee. We can extend it one
Yeah.
more time, right?
I'd like to extend the committee and see if they can give us, do you want
No,
more,
no.
Peter has a question.
more meat on the bones?
I'm sorry, unless you can give the committee clear direction, we are just yanking them around, and it is
Yeah.
not fair to them.
Exactly. I so agree with you.
We asked them to do a job, they did the best they could, there were some problems and some parameters. I just don't think it's fair to them to spend any more time when we can't give them clear direction. Dr. Mullen, you might feel differently.
Feel the same.
Can I speak to this at all?
Yeah.
Greg?
Well, hold on.
Ooh,
Dr.
is that-
Wait a second. Can we finish?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well, no, you don't have to apologize, but I would like to finish discussion. Let me just get something clear. If we made a motion here to approve no more than $20,000 for a market research study concerning the people's interest in a community center, we send that to the Board of Finance, correct? And then they choose to say the money can come from contingency, or it can come from the Waste Management Fund, or it can come from the undesignated, what do we call that now?
Unassigned.
fund balance.
Undesignated fund, we'll keep it undesignated. So they get to decide where that money comes from, correct?
Yes.
We recommend where it comes from.
We make a recommendation, but they make the decision, correct?
Yes, we recommend. So why don't you make the motion and
Oh,
recommend?
I'm getting there. I just want to make sure I get it correct. Attorney Grimes?
Yes.
What is the wording I want to say we want to request from the finance?
You are requesting a special appropriation.
Special appropriation.
Not to exceed X amount from the Board of Finance for whatever the purpose is, and you can recommend where it comes from. Or you can leave it to them to decide where it comes from.
I'm making a motion for a special appropriation not to exceed $20,000
From the Board of
from the Board of
Finance.
Finance. Thank you. For a market research study concerning interest in, or the people's interest in what they would want to see. How do you
Hold
want
on.
it?
Hold on, before you make a motion though, if we want to hear from anyone in the audience, we can't do it in the motion.
Wait a second.
Done.
Dr. Mullen has the floor.
Yeah, I'm just, all right, I'd like to
I'm
get,
trying to get the
I
word
think
here.
that, yeah, I think there are two things. To define the public perception of a community center, centralized, decentralized, et cetera, and what features they would like included in a community center.
Perfect.
Thank you. I would like that to be part of my,
And then you can recommend where the funds come from, or you can leave it to the Board of Finance to do that.
Leave it to the Board of Finance.
I would like to leave it to the Board of Finance to make that
Second.
decision.
Second.
Does that have to be in the motion to leave it to the Board of Finance?
I'm sorry?
Does that have to be in the motion to leave it to the Board of Finance, or is
No,
it
the
just-
special
Yeah, they just don't put a
appropriation.
recommendation in it, and then
Right.
it's up to the Board of Finance to say yea or nay, or
Okay.
if they say yea, where it's
Do we have to
coming
add in the point about the official RFP process, or is that inherent in the motion?
do you want to hear anyone from anyone in the committee?
Does the Board of Finance have to fund this?
from.
Can they vote against
They
funding?
they can turn it down, and you can overrule them with the 2/3.
Peter, that's your motion. Do you
Right.
want to make a specific comment, or, part of it to say that it go through the town standard RFP process?
But we don't have to do that at this point, correct?
We can go with their recommendation of Great Blue.
Oh, versus what you're saying is putting it through the
Do you wanna put it
bid
in-
process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it should go through the bid process.
Yeah, I think it needs to.
so we'll add that.
Put that in the motion.
Whoever made the second, I would like to amend my motion by putting it in that it should go through the bid process.
Okay, the second,
Walter?
yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes, we had several seconds. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Lisa.
go
Thank
through
you
the
for the help
standard
on the wording.
RFP process.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to speak quickly. I'll be voting no to the motion. I was chastised by a local political committee as the charter revision chair that we were giving authority away to the Board of Finance, allowing them to make decisions. And tonight we're doing that by not stating an account. I think it's fiscally irresponsible. When I run for this commission, you guys know I put more time in than anyone in running the numbers. I have no idea where it should be taken from. Anyone who votes for it tonight without knowing where it should be taken from, I fully expect you to be at every night of the budget hearings and providing input. Because one thing that upsets me more than anything is the majority of the people not looking at the numbers, not opening their books, not knowing the numbers, but have no problem spending the money. So I will be voting no.
Do you have an account you would want on there?
Absolutely not, Katie. We're going into the winter months.
Right.
We just took $250,000 out of unassigned for an unanticipated budgeted expenditure. We have winter materials and supplies, which anyone who was part of the budget process knows or looked at it. That was reduced from what was
Yes.
requested by the Department of Public Works.
Right.
And before the winter season and the storms have even started, we're proposing additional expenditures. I think it's irresponsible. It's only my opinion.
And I respect your opinion because I was right there with you during budget season trying to figure out what the financials were. So I would like to recommend, and I don't know if you have to go through the whole motion again, but I say this money should come out of the Waste Management Fund because we have been so good about not spending that money. That money was earmarked for public recreation, things such as this, library expansion.
Which section of the ordinance says community center?
What, does it have to, doesn't it say recreation? Why is a community center not recreation?
No. If you
The motion's for
determine-
community center.
Right.
Community center is just recreation?
It includes recreation.
I
There's
don't
there's not recreational
might.
programs in a community center? I
It
think your
might.
list of 231 programs that we currently offer to the community includes recreational
So if
programs.
it's solely recreation, the ordinance allows that.
Okay, so you're saying that Waste Management Fund cannot be used for the community center, ever?
Public education, public recreation,
Mhm.
a library,
Mhm.
open space.
So there's no public education in a community center, and there's no
There's
public
other,
recreation.
in my opinion, there's other components.
Yeah.
And so that it's inappropriately used.
Dr. Mo?
I thought I heard one of our town attorneys, Randy DeBella, earlier say, because I think he was sitting behind me when I heard him say it, that the Waste Management Fund would be money that would be appropriate for this. May I ask the town attorney,
Sure.
Mr. Grimes, if he concurs with Mr. DeBella or not?
I don't think Attorney DeBella said exactly that, but what I will say is that one of the things you'll see in the legal opinion that I did for the community center is, community center is not defined in the statutes, and there's no suggestive language in the rest of the statutes as to what it includes. It's going to be up to the town at some point, either now or in the future, via ordinance or resolution of this body, subject to town meeting, to say what a community center includes. The facilities, the municipal powers of the statute that talk about public facilities and public works don't speak to community centers. They do speak to, what they speak to very generally is any and all buildings or facilities necessary or convenient for carrying on the government of the municipality. So that's what it speaks to. Now, in terms of waste management fund, that's going to be ultimately up to the council as far as if this qualifies as an expenditure for the waste management.
So would you please read the ordinance?
Acquisition of land and buildings thereon for municipal public recreation purposes, public education purposes, or public library facilities. So that's the acquisition of land and buildings. I don't believe that's what this is. Construction of municipal public recreation, educational, or library facilities. I don't believe this is construction.
It could be.
The market research is construction.
Well, the research is to decide
It's a
which direction
free
you want
version,
to
but
go.
keep going.
The acquisition of land and buildings for open space, the purchase or acquisition of development rights of farm and agricultural land, and then tax relief.
Now, an interesting thing about that, there's no definition for open space either.
I think the state has defined that, but I'm not sure.
Statutorily, they
Last time
have.
I looked at it.
So unless it's construction, acquisition of land and buildings.
All right,
Well,
so,
they have three choices.
We have a motion.
Contingency, undesignated,
So-
or.
You know,
There's-
you may have it under to secure services of engineers, scientists, environmentalists, hydrologists, scientists, or other professionals for all purposes reasonably related to the preservation, enhancement, protection, environmental quality, town of Milford, and for all purposes reasonably related to these issues.
That's environmental.
You may get it in there, but you know, you do not have it specifically defined as the answer.
so gray zone, but your motion still stands, it's been
Yep.
seconded.
Right.
There was my discussion point.
Walter?
I call for a vote.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Did you make the motion to amend?
Dr. Mullen made the motion.
So you didn't make one to amend to come out of waste management?
Yep.
No.
No, I got shot down.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion? Does anybody need the motion read back to them?
No.
Nope.
Ugh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can you just?
Pete, you're up.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
interesting turn of events.
Pete, you're up.
You know? Katie, what?
5-4?
You know?
I don't know.
4-4, because Doug had to go because his tooth was cold.
That's 4-4.
Didn't that go on to you?
It doesn't have to.
Do we all get to hear, or is this a secret?
It's a secret.
Come on, guys, let's finish this up.
Well, unless you vote yes, we're done.
I'm voting to table it.
All right.
We're done.
Do we get
A
a
motion
motion?
Whoa, before we move. Okay, you got all that, Stephanie?
Something for municipal roads.
We have a,
I'm sorry.
what do we have to do with the roads,
You
Matt?
have-
I do not have.
Should be, so, last council meeting, you approved the ordinance with respect to the Municipal Roads Committee. We followed all of the processes an ordinance is required to follow with it. However, because that ordinance specifically creates a new border commission, which it does, you need to call a special town meeting for 6:45 PM on December 10th to ratify that ordinance because it establishes a border commission that did not exist.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in
Second,
favor?
wait, do we get a second? I'll
We have a
second,
second.
Dr. Mullen.
Where's the resolution? Don't leave without signing it, please.
I don't
What,
have,
we
we
got
don't
it?
have one.
Who's got it?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
one second before we adjourn.
You got to sign that.
Mr. McBriarty addressed the council last time about appropriating funds to the VFW for veterans. To make a very long story short, we have a private donation that Mr. McBriarty had offered 30 names for 1 year to be into the American Legion. A private donor who has donated those funds
How much is it?
to the American Legion for their first year. So I would like to thank Mr. Looney for making that offer. I think it's a wonderful thing for our veterans.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you,
I'd
Steve.
like to thank you.
Sorry we made you wait so long to tell us.
And Pete, you got that thing for us to sign?
Oh, yeah.
All right, for the third time, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You got it.
Thank you.